Hey, welcome back, guys. The focus of today's video is we're trying to figure out why this thing wants to die when I rev it and why it doesn't want to restart. Now, again, this thing's on the Holley Terminator and I don't have the exact injectors they give you to select when you're programming the Terminator in the Wizard. I'm running Deca 80-pound injectors, and in the menu for the Wizard it only gives you 60-pound Deca injectors as an option. So I chose the Injector Clinic 850, which was the only option that was close enough to it in the Wizard. So it'll fire up no problem when it's cold and it'll idle, but when you rev it up, when the RPMs drop back down to idle, it'll stall out and it won't restart. I usually have to let the car sit for an hour or so before it'll fire back up. Even if the car ran for 5-10 minutes, got up to temperature, as soon as I rev it, it'll die out when it comes back down to idle, and I won't be able to restart it. I have to let it sit for a while. So I emailed Holley and explained to them my situation, and I got an email response back, and I'm just going to read you the email, and then I'm going to go through and try to decipher what the problem might be. They responded to me by going, hello Steve, the restart problems are typically due to too much fuel during cranking. Be sure you have the appropriate amount of fuel pressure. Too much in the injectors will push in too much fuel. Usually not a problem while cold, but can make it hot starts very frustrating. Also check the LEDs on the unit. If any of them go red, note that this indicates an error. Crank and cam sensor errors will cause engines to die after being revved up. Verify all the sensors are reading correctly, particularly the map sensor. Make sure it's reading an appropriate number. Lower at idle, higher while accelerating, and upwards of 100 kPa under boost. If you install the new intake, be double sure that you aren't missing a vacuum plug and check for a good seal. Vacuum leaks may also exhibit this behavior. If all of the above check out, make sure you have the correct injectors selected from the Wizard or the drop down in the software. Incorrect injectors off time data can cause many issues, including the ones you're facing. Regards, the tech that messaged me. So, aside from what they want me to check, one thing I wanted to check was, because these are cheap injectors, and I noticed that when I shut the car off, my fuel pressure dies right down to zero within about 15 minutes or so, which I never had that problem before, but I've also switched out the fuel pump. So behind me, I'll show you in a second, I pulled the fuel rails along with the injectors out of the intake, and I have them zip tied together so they don't come apart under pressure, and we're going to key it on and we're going to see if any of them are leaking, because I feel like if they're leaking, that could also be giving me my problem, and that would explain why my fuel pressure drops when the car is off. It could just be filling up cylinders with fuel, because if you remember in my last video there, or a few videos ago, my oil had a ton of fuel in it, and I just want to make sure I don't have an issue with the injectors, so we can kind of rule that out, because it could just be the fuel pressure could just be dying back through the pump, and then that's not really a big problem. So we're going to take a look at the injectors right now, and we're going to see if there's any problem with those, and then we'll start going through the list that Holley gave me, and we'll see if we can figure out what the issue is during hot starts. All right, well, you see I got my exhaust all put together, and I actually got heat wrap on the headers and the downpipe. Some of that was pretty easy to install, other parts were a little tricky. It actually took me a couple hours to get it all wrapped, but I shouldn't have to worry about melted wires anymore. But anyway, what I got going on up here is I just laid an old hoodie across. I had to zip tie the injectors to my rail because I've got a billet fuel rail, and there's no clip that holds the injector to the rail, so I had to zip tie them. But I've got them all sitting out up on top, and I'm just going to key it ahead to prime the system. The fuel pump runs for about 5 seconds, which is enough to put it under, I think it goes up to about 40 psi. 40 psi. And now I can see if I have anything leaking, because I should be able to see a wet spot. And I haven't seen any wet spots anywhere. Which is a good sign. Each spot is dry, which is a good sign. Bad because I got to keep looking for the problem, but good that I know I don't have to replace my injectors. So I'm just going to have to start going down the list and looking for vacuum leaks, and I might just I might drop my fuel pressure a bit. I've got it set to, I believe I have it set at 60 pounds right now when it's running, and I might drop that down a bit, and we'll see if that helps. Because like I said, these aren't the correct injectors for what the Wizard gives you as an option. They're close, but I'm probably gonna have to play around with it a little bit. But I'm gonna check for vacuum leaks. If I can get this thing to fire up, like I might start it and then just go around with my propane bottle and see if the RPMs raise at all. That's one way to check for a vacuum leak, but let's plug away at this. All right, the injectors are back on, and I dropped the fuel pressure down about 10 pounds, and I'm gonna fire it up right now for the first time with the new exhaust on it. So it'll be the first time that I get to hear what this thing's gonna sound like. Okay, yep, let's fire it up and see what's going on. So much quieter in here. So my fuel pressure's at about 50 pounds. Sounds so nice. Gonna have a lot of crap cooking off with the heat wrap. It's never been heated yet. It's so much more manageable in here right now. What a difference having that exhaust on. Like, it smelled so bad here before. You're choking on exhaust. Now it's gonna get smoky because of the wrap here, but so much more manageable here right now and much quieter. Still gotta get a new rad cap. You can see she's leaking here. Nothing I can do about it right now. I want to see if the fuel pressure change fixed anything or not. Better. I do have to play with the throttle blade a little bit. I'm almost wondering if I have to adjust the set screw down here. But last time, any other time I would rev it, it would die after, and there was no idling. See, now it's running much better. It stumbled there for a bit, almost like it was too rich, but then I gave it a shot and it recovered. right now I've got sitting around 40 pounds. It ran better when it was at 50 pounds than it was when I had it at 60, and then I wound it down to a 40, and like you just saw, I can rev it up and it won't die out anymore. So maybe that was my problem all along. It was just too much fuel pressure with the injectors I have in there, because like I said, they're not there is no injector in the Wizard. I'm just going to shut this off. There's no, this particular injector isn't in the Wizard, so I had to pick the closest one to it. And I was having an issue with it firing up, as you guys saw before. Once it was warm, it wouldn't start up, and then when I rev it, it would die, and then that was it. But as Holley suggested, play with your fuel pressure. You might have too much fuel pressure, and it looked like that had the biggest effect. I didn't notice any vacuum leaks, and yeah, turn the fuel pressure down and it's running way better. So I'm very happy with that, and I think I'm gonna leave it at that for now. It runs well, and I'm gonna crunch to try and get this thing drivable. Then I can do some real road tests with it, and it still has some learning to do to kind of fine tune it a bit, and then I will be taking it down to, hopefully, if this whole COVID thing allows me to, a local shop who has a dyno that we can put this on and really dial it in and get some numbers. So as far as today's video goes, I know it's shorter than some of the other ones, which some of you appreciate that it's shorter. Yeah, I still stand by doing this Holley Terminator setup on it. I was having some troubles there, but it looks like all it was it took a little less fuel pressure to make it all work. So that's it for today. Next video, we're going to get to putting the shifter and stuff in and buttoning up a few other little things on the car to get this thing back on the ground. But that's it for today.